back to yet another episode. We have officially came to Bears Week, probably one of the best weeks you can find in the NFL season. This is like our third and feels like recent memory that we're kicking off the season with our used to be so-called arch rivals. Rasul Douglas thinks differently along with other Packer fans, but damn does it feel good that football officially kicks off tonight with Thursday night. And Dave and myself have a bit of a treat today for this episode. But before getting into all that, what we have planned for today, Dave, let's go ahead and light this fire for a Bears Week episode. Cheers, my boy.
Yeah, cheers, man. It's like Christmas morning here.
It is. I would say you said you didn't sleep a wink last night. I don't know if that was in anticipation of the Thursday night matchup of Lions Chiefs or what that could have been. But hey, football's here. It's back.
That just happens to be the schedule, man. Working the graveyard shift. And so we just kind of rolled in and you wanted to do the episode today. So we didn't get much sleep. We're just living off of some bourbon right now.
And little others know this is our second sort of rehash or preview of the Bears Week, but it's definitely added with a twist, and we're kind of going into enemy territory today, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think we decided it'd be nice to have someone on here that is knowledgeable enough and can kind of give us a little bit of taste of our own medicine, see kind of what our weaknesses are and what their strengths are from an actual Bears fan. So we got someone with a little bit of credentials here. He's a D3 college coach that then got shipped off to Germany to become a defensive coordinator for the German football league. So let's bring in Blake Potash to talk some Bears Packer football with us.
How you guys doing? Glad to be a part of it and join you guys for this really super exciting NFL season. Really excited to finally get back to it, and there's no better way to do it than Bears Packers at Soldier Field week one, especially where everyone kind of who knows what's going on. So
yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, you're saying I was a champ. I mean, this guy's staying up to 1 a.m. He's in like literally across the Atlantic coming in here. Yeah, do you it's interesting because it's going to be the unknown of Jordan Love, and then I think year 3 in Fields, there has to be some sort of expectations now for him, right?
Absolutely. First Bears passer going over 4,000 yards that's what this year's all about, right?
If that happens, they're winning the Super Bowl. I mean, that 2,500, not that many picks, I'll be happy. Definite expectations. This is the year where it's a lot of fans are saying if it's not great, if it's not better than Jay Cutler has been, then we need to tank or hope the Panthers lose and get Caleb Williams. I think that's kind of where Bears fans are at least the most reasonable ones. We saw how dynamic he was rushing the ball, and that sets a high floor, at least in some of the games you guys saw last year in the game. How big just he can break open a 55-yard touchdown run. That's what happens. But we need to see progression as a passer. You can't get through this league without being able to throw the ball and drop back 30, 35 times a game. The last time we saw him against the Packers was probably the best passing game he's ever had, at least up to that point. And it was 20 for 25, most efficient, with a couple picks, no touchdowns. And that can't be the ceiling. But so it's going to be very much can he at least be an average passer? And to go with a 1,000-yard rusher, and from there, that's a great place to be where, hey, he can be the quarterback, get the extension, and go from there.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong here. He's up for the 5th-year option after this year, right?
This should be year 3, so they can extend him after this year. They can do it after this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and you caught Jair snoozing in that last matchup too. Sitting on the route. He got you the better half the second time around, but you caught Jair snoozing on defense, sitting on a comeback route with EQ, but he went over the top and got you there. Damn, I didn't know he was 20-25 in that game.
Yeah, it was massive.
Blake came and did his homework. I normally throw stats out. I'm like, someone better fact check that because that's nowhere near it is.
You always got to have evidence because, especially as a coach, kids are always asking like, hey, I got all them tackles, right? You got to make sure you're on your P's and Q's with that. But he overthrew Cole Kmet early, threw the pick where, St. Brown, people were like, it's his fault. It wasn't a great ball. And he threw the late pick in desperation when they're chasing the game, a couple short passes. But he hit 2 long balls, one to N'Keal Harry, and then St. Brown. He's actually able to throw him and lead and make some over the middle passes. So it's good to see, hey, he can be the guy. And then it kind of went to, hey, Chase Claypool fumbled the ball on the 40-yard line. You miss a field goal, and all of a sudden it's, Aaron Rodgers against the Bears, and we know how that turns out every year. So
there's no question that the weapons definitely got better on the offensive side of the ball for you guys. I mean, we saw in the preseason, just there's smoke screens going 65, 70 yards. So that's definitely going to be helpful for you guys. But offensive line wise, I don't know if you guys bolstered it enough. I still think Fields is going to have a tough time having enough time to make the reads that he needs to make, because he just seems like a guy that takes a while to go through progressions. Like, it's 1 read, 2 reads, and then I'm going to book it out of here.
They did pick up Darnell Wright in the draft from Tennessee, and I know the Packers most likely had their eyes on him if he would have slipped to him at that spot. But hey, they got right tackle for sure squared away, I would think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know what you've been seeing so far out of him in the training camp, Blake, and they got our old guy. I'm blanking on the name. Patrick.
Lucas Patrick.
Yeah, Lucas Patrick. They're at guard/center, but that's probably a good spot, or maybe a point of contention with this Bears offensive line that hasn't done Fields a ton of favors in his first couple seasons.
Not at all. It's been very rough, and they haven't been able to put together an offensive line in probably 15 years. And that's the biggest difference between, I think, the Packers and the Bears is I've seen a lot of people give Packers GM and everything credit for drafting super well. But I think the biggest point of that is the Packers develop better than almost anybody else. Maybe the Patriots and the Steelers are the other teams that do it. So the biggest thing we always say is if Patrick Mahomes went to the Bears, he would not be as good as he is right now.
Yeah.
Not because of the weapons, just because the development in that system, not having Andy Reid and all that stuff is just you don't become as good as you can be. And that's what's so annoying about the Packers is you just find random guy, Zach Tom, whoever, he'll end up being an all-pro this year because he's a Packers draft pick. And that's how that happens because they know what they're doing in terms of development. That's where I think the Bears lack the most is you have Braxton Jones, who was, hey, he's the left tackle now. He's a rookie, and he's good enough. But does he become really good? Who knows? Yeah. Does Darnell Wright become really good? Who knows? That's kind of where we're lacking, and we're counting on a bunch of guys to actually develop and be a 5th-round draft pick that becomes a everyday starter.
Do you think David Bakhtiari would have been an all-pro left tackle if he headed to the Bears coming out of, the 4th round from Coach Pryan's Colorado Buffaloes?
Maybe. He might be just good enough to snake one all-pro season. So.
Maybe he doesn't tear his knee. I'm sorry, I have to say this. David Bakhtiari hasn't practiced in a month. I know, Dave, you only want to roll the Lambo out on Sundays, but it was brought up to LaFleur today. LaFleur was not happy today, by the way, in press conferences, but they brought it up to LaFleur today, and I'm like, all right, shit. He hasn't practiced in that long. All right, now I am kind of a little bit.
It's like the Sterling Sharp turf toe season. Sharp didn't practice all year, and he rolled out with 18 touchdowns and 1,500 yards. So we're just gonna do that. We're gonna have a Sterling Sharp season. Question for you though, Blake, in terms of attacking. I know quarterback's a big piece in terms of how you want to play your defense. Does offensive line factor in at all about how you game plan, whether you sit back or you want to actually get after an offensive line? I guess if an offensive line is weak, you're probably more comfortable just going 4 guys in as a pass rush and sitting back versus, hey, if it's a stronger offensive line, you might want to bring a little bit of pressure to see if you can kind of get home. What's your kind of mindset on that?
Yeah, that's the most probably crucial thing is how many do you need to rush to get home, especially when you have a quarterback like Jordan Love who he's going to have to grow into the game. You want to get after him. And Justin Fields, the same exact thing, who's going to be a little. You don't know if he's going to stand in there or want to just run. So against the Packers pass rush, who seems to have some pass rushers back and healthy, you want to keep a tight end in there. You want to keep a running back in there to make sure, and then you only have 3 options against zone defense or even 2-man stuff like that. That's going to really cause issues, and you're going to have to really hit a window. Depends on who your quarterback is. Aaron Rodgers, he's going to hit a window. You give him one receiver, and that's Jordy Nelson. He's going to find a window, and they're going to find a spot. Justin Fields, with who knows who's out there, and we haven't seen DJ Moore yet. You want to give him as much time as possible and have as many options. So that's definitely the big question: is can they do that? Braxton Jones was a big guy to be the pass pro guy. And he's been that way. Darnell Wright's supposed to be super athletic. He's not big and long, but he's really athletic and really good with his feet. So he's, at least profile-wise, a good pass pro guy. The interior 3 just need to be big and beefy to hold them off. So there's at least some signs there that they can be that. But I think you're going to see a lot of Mercedes Lewis in there, even Tunyon to go in there, some Deontay Foreman to be in the pass pro. You're going to see 3-man routes quite a bit. A lot of short game too. I know you guys talked about that. DJ Moore short game. We're going to get the ball out to Khalil Herbert and kind of run some screens and get the ball out quickly, help get him in a rhythm so the Packers can't just flood the box. So now you're one-on-one tackling, and that becomes an issue. So I think there's some game plan stuff you can do around it, but it all depends on this first game if they can really protect with 5. Into the season they might grow onto it. Week 1, not too confident in that.
Do you see it being like a slugfest, like in terms of like old school, like what we saw in, I guess, like 2010, like the 10-6 type game where it's just like typically offenses are ahead of the game in September and you're seeing higher scores, but are you seeing this pretty low scoring just because it's the inexperience level at quarterback?
That's what you would think initially, and it's Bears Packers at Soldier Field. There's been one game in Rodgers' entire career that was not a close game in the fourth quarter. And that's what Bears Packers is, especially at Soldier Field when the Bears are worse. The only 2 wins were the 2 best Bears seasons since 2008, in 2010 and 2018, and that's what we're going to get, especially when you don't have the Aaron Rodgers magic. The receiver core of the Packers is really, really iffy, and the Bears DBs are young, and that could be the best unit on the team if they develop like we see. They have a bunch of actual draft picks. That's the unit that looks the most like the Packers units, and they just have to develop to get there. But if this is a blowout, either way, more so the Packers way, I'd be surprised. 27-20 type of thing, 23-17 type of game.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I was going to say, you brought up Big Dog. I mean, you have that added luxury. You basically have another tackle to your offensive line. Like your run game with Herbert and Roschon Johnson, who I really liked out of college. He's like a battering ram. I mean, I can't imagine how many broken tackles he's going to have by season end, but Big Dog and what he brings in not only the run game, but the leadership. I don't know what you signed him for as a contract, but he far exceeds that value. I mean, Aaron Rodgers can't say enough great things about him. I think Matt LaFleur had a jersey of Big Dog at some point. Like now that you brought him up, I'm like, get him in there as much as possible on rundowns, or he still has a little bit of pass catching ability to him as well. But I mean, I think he's breaking like the all-time tight end number of seasons played too. Yeah. But that gives me a little bit of reason for worry on Sunday when it comes to those second and shorts, third and shorts, and I see Big Dog lined up in line and them running toward his side of the field, because I think Rashawn Gary, you can take advantage of him in the run game, and he's not always excellent at setting the edge. Same thing goes with Preston, and beyond those 2, they're rather inexperienced guys, or I'd almost say like Justin Hollins is probably one of our best at setting the edge against the run. But advantage goes to the Bears, I'd have to say, without a doubt, in pass blocking when it comes to the tight end position. Ours is going to struggle mightily. I'll just say that.
That's the big key, I think, is we've talked about this before, Jordan, that Love has gotten off to slow starts. He needs some time to find the rhythm. And if the Bears run game is as advertised and the Packers run defense has been the same old in years past, it's just going to be the play differential is going to be massive. It's going to be, you get a couple of 3-and-outs or maybe one first down from Love, and he's taking his time to kind of get things going. And the Bears already ran 20, 25 plays, and they're just chewing up clock with just pounding it down, whether it's Fields picking up a first down with his legs or just handing the ball off. That's going to be a real key to it. I mean, I think Packers need to come out and just throw a haymaker right off the bat. Like I said, just, fake handoff and just chuck it deep like the Vikings game and hope you corral it this time.
Yeah, if it turns into like these 8-9 minute drives for the Bears, and I just think about, like, if you go back to weaknesses, areas that we're susceptible, Blake, is like we have an inside linebacker whose talent is similar to like a Roquan Smith, but his ability to diagnose plays quickly and get off blocks is something that he's still lacking in. Quay Walker, who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So you have him, and outside of Kenny Clark on our defensive line, if there's one area that I'm like, you can still probably get 5 yards a carry per run. Like, if you commit to the running game, I think it's going to pay dividends throughout this game for you. But if Fields wants to prove himself as a pocket passer and get to that 4,000-yard mark to show that he's not just a one-trick pony, that's where I think you're going to have Jair potentially shadowing DJ Moore and having Rasul. Both those two I already know. I can tell you they're going to want to sit on routes again and test Fields as much as possible. Our safeties,
we don't have safeties. We don't own a starting safety in this league. Like,
they just basically threw two warm bodies out there, and hopefully they can get in your way and trip you up when you get past the 20-yard line against us. But yeah, I mean, those are definitely a few areas that if the Bears want to know how to come out with a W in this one, the run game for sure is one that I would lean heavily on.
Absolutely. That's kind of where I think they've done a lot last year, especially kind of make sure Fields eases into games and not give him too much responsibility. You need to. They have 4 running backs on roster and a fullback and 4 tight ends. If they're not trying to run the ball, then they got the wrong roster construction for that. And that's kind of where we need to be, especially with a defense that you don't really know how it's going to go. It was basically the worst defense in football last year. Added a whole new front 6, growing front 7 or back 5, basically, that you need to control the game, control the clock, keep it. We're not going to win 35, 32 shootouts. Not going to happen unless Justin Fields, flicks that switch that we have no idea whether that's going to happen or not. It's a run game is going to be absolutely massive this year.
You brought on it, just bringing in new guys and all that stuff. That's the one thing I think the Packers defense has the edge on is just communication. And you could probably have a good sense of what that is like in terms of relaying the plays and then player relaying it to everyone else and passing guys off and stuff like that. If there's a bunch of guys that are not used to playing with each other, how big of a jump is it to actually trust one another and get communication set so that the right guy's getting passed off and you're just not having guys screaming wide open? And
how much do they play in the preseason together?
Yeah, that's very difficult. These guys are pros, so it's a lot different than the college level. But that's the number one thing. It's not really understanding the playbook or understanding the style, because across the NFL, it's so universal. You can plug and play in terms of scheme, but it's trusting the guy next to you to do the right job, or not being like, hey, this dude in front of me, he sucks. I need to do more than what my job is. And then he starts getting out of position because he's trying to do too much. That's where the actually trusting each other, huge on the O-line and really huge in the secondary, probably the biggest two, where that trust, quarterback, receiver, of course, but where you really see it the most. That's where that's huge. And having a whole new D-line and linebacker core, it's going to be very interesting to see if they can actually, fit the run well. Because terrible run defense last year can be average this year. Then I think the back end will actually shine because those guys are at least talented enough and have shown flashes. But the whole front end there, you just don't know what they're going to do because everyone's new and it's basically a coin flip at this point.
Is Tremaine Edmonds wearing the microphone then as the inside backer?
That I don't know. I would think
I would think.
that's
And
what
then
it's
my
supposed to be.
question is going
I'm
to
not sure.
be, it's like this is like a classic Packers Bears fan. This is where things tend to clash. AJ Dillon meets Tremaine Edmonds in the hole. Who's winning that contest? Is he going to stand him up and drive him back, or is
Man,
AJ Dillon going to show off Quadzilla?
that's a big boy coming in the gap. If it's down the A gap, I don't know. You might win that one. We get a little bit of an angle, a little outside run, a little more Aaron Jones speed, and I think we got a shot to win that one. But I'm excited to see that happen.
Because I will say from preseason, you can just tell from listening to AJ Dillon, Dave, that he's going to be running underneath his pads, I think, a lot more this year and getting north and south than sort of second guessing himself in the backfield.
He's the biggest back that gets tripped up the most I've ever seen in my life.
He slips a ton in the backfield too. I don't know what is up with his
He
cleats,
just doesn't have his feet underneath him or whatever the correct terminology is. But
quads are too big to support his
center of
cleat.
gravity.
His cleats, something like that.
But you're a betting man, Blake. What's your over/under for carries in this game for both teams?
Let's just say for the last 7 years, I haven't been allowed to bet on football.
I'm not
so
saying
I'm not a betting man.
You're not a betting
Okay.
man. All right, we'll put that on
gotcha.
my fault. In terms of just
I got you. Number of carries for who? Sorry,
for both sides. How often or how many carries?
50 something.
Okay, I was going to put
it's going to be
60,
it's going to be mid-20s apiece. Last game, I believe it was 57. I think Packers had 32, Bears 50, 25, something like that. So it's going to be around there again. I think they want to week one. You want to show off the quarterback a little bit if you trust him.
Okay.
This is the Justin Fields year. It's the Jordan Love year, even.
Yeah.
So they need to see what they got right now, and so they, depending on how the structure of the game, you do feel that itch of the fans and the organization. We got to show what we got quarterback. So maybe a little more than we're thinking, but the core is going to be the run game for both teams. Both teams ran the ball quite well last year. So
you're in a kind of a unique spot because from my understanding, Germany is actually very pro-Packer. Has there been any buzz over where you are about the upcoming game, or have you talked shop with them?
I saw an Aaron Rodgers jersey at the gas station the other day. I'm like, are you serious? Come on.
Yeah, what's your guys' owner doing in Germany?
Yeah, probably not good things. But a lot of Packers fans, especially on our team, and a lot of the people that actually like American football over here, couldn't tell you why. Probably seeing Rodgers on national television over the last 15 years. Don't know what the marketing thing is, but that's definitely many, many Packers fans, Packers gears, more so than you'll see. Then you randomly you get teams like the Dolphins are big over here, and then like the Lions have a weird grouping of fans, but I think Packers probably the number one, and then maybe Chiefs because they're the Chiefs. So
yeah. You get those kind of tides of like 49ers all of a sudden take off. You get some 49ers fans and whatever it might be, but so overall, where are you kind of seeing the edge in terms of Bears then?
For this game specifically, where they're going to have to win it?
Yeah. What are like the two keys, I guess, where you say where if they do this and this, like there's a higher probability than not that they're going to win the game?
If they are able to win in man coverage, which they're not, I don't see them doing too much of, at least in the preseason. There's a lot of zone, a lot of 2, a lot of 3. If they can win in that and be able to stack the box and be really solid in the run game and force Jordan Love to make plays, and that has to be where it's at. I think Justin Fields is going to get his rushing yards. We'll be able to make shift offense. Not going to be pretty, but I think we'll be able to make shift enough to where we can find the receivers are at least good enough as we see them that we'll be able to find a way to get 17.
Tell you right now that Keyshawn Nixon, if you're going to attack any cornerback, I mean, it's sort of process of elimination, but Keyshawn Nixon, he's somebody that's been targeted in the preseason and in training camp that they've been able to get receptions on. He's somebody in the slot with Darnell Mooney. I don't know where you're lining him up at because him and DJ Moore kind of seem like they can line up at that same spot. I think you're going to probably line up DJ much more in that X spot, but Mooney in the slot, you can get those crossers, and with your guys' offensive coordinator, Gessie, that's coming over from Green Bay, rub routes, I could definitely see that they're going to be taking the ball and heading it towards Keyshawn Nixon in the slot's way.
Yeah, we got Green Bay South and Green Bay East, man. There is one big key I think that you kind of touched on, Blake, is the off schedule. I think Fields is better off schedule than Love, at least from what I've seen. Love has been, if he can make the first read or the second read and snap it in there, how the play is designed, he's actually been very efficient this preseason. He showed a little bit of ability with his legs the last preseason game, but if you get him moving and stuff, the accuracy, he just doesn't get the feet kind of squared up to his target. The accuracy kind of goes out the window. He's a little bit more razzled, where I think Fields lives in that. He can kind of be like, okay, I got a shot play here rolling out, or I could just use my legs. Defenses are hesitant to attack him when he gets outside the pocket, and Love's just the uncertainty, where I think that's the big key is, can you corral Fields when the play breaks down, and can Love make the play when the play breaks down?
Definitely. That's massive, because Fields is he's comfortable in that, hey, I don't have to be here, 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 and then make this exact throw. It's, you get him on his feet, he still looks downfield as he's scrambling, and then he has the arm talent to make any throw, and accurately, where he's just not thinking of, I have to do this, I have to do this, this, and this, and then it's a on-time type of thing. So I think you're absolutely right there.
One question I have, Blake, is this kind of flips it back towards the other side of the ball. Like the Bears, and you're right, these two position groups, they're pretty similar when it comes to inexperience. But like the Bears cornerbacks, I don't know much about what is his name, Gordon, and then Jalen Johnson.
Gordon,
yeah, two former like second round picks for the Bears. It's looking like the Packers' number one wide receiver, Christian Watson, is going to be potentially out on Sunday, game time decision. I would lean towards that. You want to protect your horse in the stable as much as possible, and he's not likely going to be playing. All signs point towards no, I would think. So
Malik Heath career game.
Yeah, Malik Heath career game. He's going to have to take a lion's share of the snaps, similar to like when you insert a Jordy Nelson back in 2010 when Donald Driver was out in the Super Bowl. He's not going to have that type of game, but like, what can you tell us Packer fans about these Bears young cornerbacks? Are they going to, now they got to contend with Romeo Doubs, who's a really good possession receiver, but he's also a sophomore. And then from there, it's an undrafted free agent, a 7th round draft pick. I don't even know if Wicks can play in this game. Like,
we got Reed though. Reed in the
yeah,
slot.
we got 2nd round draft pick Jaden Reed out of the slot. Like, on both the sides, it's like, who does the edge really go towards if Christian Watson is out of this game?
Yeah, that was the biggest worry, because Christian Watson is supposed to be, he's a lot of people's favorite pick to be the next guy at receiver even from this last draft class. If you look at some of the stats, like I know he came on kind of later in the year, his yards per route run, which is a kind of a new age stat that people love, one of the highest in the last like 10 years, something like that. And just super dynamic. We scored, I think, 9 touchdowns last year as a rookie. He was super scary, especially against, we have Kyler Gordon, I believe, is actually going to play the nickel this year. I think it's going to be mostly a 4-2-5 look from the jump. And Tyreek Stevenson, the rookie, I believe won that starting corner job. He's not a man corner. He runs 4.4, but he's a big, long, physical guy. He might be the heaviest DB we got that's playing corner. And he wasn't going to be able to at least run with Watson. So it was up to Jalen Johnson, who's in his 4th year fighting for a new contract. And he was the guy is like, hey, we drafted a young DB. When everybody thinks they draft a young DB, they think they have Darrelle Revis because he's fast, he's quick, he covers, but it doesn't always turn out that way. So he's been good, he's been bad. Kind of like Eddie Jackson, who's been a Pro Bowler, and then he was gone for a couple of years doing whatever on the field. Literally just like,
that locker room dance get the best of him, or what? What was that locker room dance that they had going on called?
I forgot what that was called. But it didn't work in the future. And then he kind of honed it in last year. I think having some young DBs, he had to become the leader of that group. He kind of fixed it up a little bit. But it's going to have to be Jalen Johnson basically locking him down. But without that number one guy, even without a Dobbs, I think it's going to be a very zony game from the Bears defense to be able to make sure they have the defenders in the run fit, to make sure, hey, we don't have to play man, or we really can't play man because we're more of a zone type of secondary. This is the year for Jaquan Brisker, where if he makes a jump that people think, he's a Pro Bowl type safety, made a lot of plays on the ball, but
He was leading sacker last year too.
Yeah. Hopefully if that's the same thing, I'm going to go crazy. We brought in a few new defensive linemen. If Ngakoue can't get at least 4, we're in trouble. But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be probably a zone defense trying to take the ball away, because we're going to get driven on quite a bit. So man coverage isn't going to cut it. So we're going to have to play zone, try and get in some windows, and without good receivers, it makes it a little bit easier to do.
Yeah, I think also in terms of like that, this year is just, there's so like a high level of turnover for the Packers. And this is even excluding the quarterback position. Like, you're trading experience with Cobb going, Lazard going, Big Dog going, and you're going youth, but you're going speed. I think this is the most speed we've ever seen from a Packers group. We got Musgrave, who is like a Finley type, who can stretch the field, and he's going to be a possession type. But also, I don't think the league, but specifically Bears, haven't seen LaFleur's true offense either, because Rodgers was constantly calling out of plays. I don't know how much you agree with this, but like, even going back a year or 2 years, Rodgers like, enough with this motion stuff. I don't understand the motion. It's distracting me. I just want guys lining up and going. I think LaFleur is going to make it very easy on Jordan Love. Where in terms
Does Jordan Love even wear a wristband either, like the play sheet on his
No,
arm?
he just wears 2 massive like sweatbands on his arms. That's it. But
I think that shows quite a bit, because Rodgers wore that his last few seasons in Green Bay.
And there's an argument to be made that the Bears coaching staff hasn't been necessarily friendly to Fields. I think you can go that route, where they necessarily don't make he's just not learning it fast enough, or can't make the reads. But there's been plays that we've seen throughout training camp and throughout preseason where we're like, wow, like, has this been the playbook the entire time? Because this is a cool look, or this is a cool concept. And either like Rodgers is like, this is trash, I don't want to do it, or it's LaFleur evolving, saying, I have a young quarterback and I just need to help him out as much as possible.
And they got to let the training wheels getting taken off of Fields too. Like, when I was there at the home opener for the Packers at Lambeau last year, Fields only had 70 yards passing. And it's like, geez, they're really keeping him to like a Mitch Trubisky playbook. Like, you got to kind of take the training wheels off and let the pony out of the stable and let him run. Not actually run, but actually pass. That's my analogy though.
Yeah, it's not a bad one. You have to. There's not to call it a Ewing theory, but you find out there's some times where Rodgers is kind of like, you do the, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and just let him do what he does, because it's worked so far for 15 years.
Yeah.
And now you get someone who can run the system as it's supposed to be run and make everything more efficient. You might see just the same amount of production with a lesser quarterback, and you can actually do the same things offensively or even better, while you take away a Hall of Famer, but you can get better because you don't have to cater to the superstar and just, hey, you do what you do. And you see that a lot. Not to say, you would prefer not to have Rodgers, but that happens way more than I think people think.
I'm going to test your knowledge here, boy, because I'm saying if it's a 3-point game, you guys are winning it, because I have zero trust in our special teams. Jordan is tired of me talking about special teams. We have a rookie punter and we have a rookie kicker, and the kicker just is everywhere. Like, he makes 57 yarders and he misses like 9 extra points in practice. And they're just going to roll with it because there's a youth movement going on in Green Bay. They don't have the cap space either, because you got the $40 mil cap hit on Rodgers that's out the window. But that's like a thing. Like, if it's a 40-yard kick, Bears up 3 to send us, into overtime, or if it's tied game to send us into overtime. I don't know how much faith I have in that. On the flip side of that, Keyshawn Nixon can house it at any time. So it's kind of like a double-edged, it's kind of like, okay, pick your poison. If this unit's on, I have no trust in. If the return unit is on, I'm like, okay, we could get some excellent field position here.
Yeah, if you recall, we're going to throw it back. Aaron Rodgers' first ever game at Soldier Field, Mason Crosby gets a field goal blocked at the end of regulation to win it, and the Bears go down, kick a field goal, and win. One of his, I believe, 3 losses at Soldier Field. So that could definitely be a big factor. That was a maybe second year Mason Crosby too. I know it was blocked, but super young there. So I believe it's Anders Carlson I believe he's Swedish. Him and his brother were actually over here, I believe, a month ago, right before training camp. But you don't know. Sometimes these rookie kickers, they once they figure it out, they just go. The special teams is really where that can be a big factor in close games where you don't know. You get one muff punt, which Velus Jones has done. He lost the punt return jobs, and that's all he was drafted for, was to be the returner. But he can't hold on to the ball, so he can't do it, and we just wasted the draft pick. But the Bears have 4 running backs on their roster. One of them is Travis Honer, and he's a massive special teams guy who's going to get down and cause some havoc with great speed and physicality. And they've at least shown a lot. They're young, they're hungry, and guys, when you have a young team, you have a lot of guys proving that they need to prove that they belong in the league.
Yeah.
So you're going to get better effort on special teams. You're probably going to get more guys that are going to go just knock someone out and try and do that. So I feel pretty good about the Bears special team. The battery is all the same. Santos has been good, even though he missed in the game last year, but he's been good. The punter's been fine. So I think that can definitely be a game changer if you guys aren't confident about the Packers special teams besides the kick return. I feel pretty good about the Bears overall.
Yeah, the Packers over the last however many years that we've been ranting about it, but their ability to actually cover returns has been in question, and their ability to actually operate a correct operation in terms of getting the punt off and the kickoff has been an issue for several years now. And it only took 8 games of Keyshawn Nixon to have any faith in the return game. So there's massive question marks and just like, can you prove yourself? So if you're confident in their Bears' ability to go down and actually be efficient in that, that's a massive edge to you guys. Because in close games like this, like you said, all it takes is, instead of hitting a 45-yard punt, you might shank one, or you might get one blocked, or you might muff one, or whoever knows. That's the difference in this ball game, which unfortunately for us, Jordan, like we've seen countless times, that unit let us down over and over again.
I have to say, Blake, I'm really impressed with your recall, because I'm looking up that 2008 season, and Dave knows there's an absurd number of like parallels between like this sort of time frame that we're in now to 2007 and 2008. Yeah. And like I see this season playing a lot like that one. Like we're gonna have really rough stretches. The schedule is kind of similar to that too, with like a certain stretch where we face like the Chiefs and Chargers and
Steelers and all that.
Yeah, Steelers, a few other teams. But like I'm looking at these 2 games from 2008. So the one in Lambeau, the Packers won 37-3. There's no way that sort of game happens on Sunday. And then to your point, here's an overtime loss to the Bears at Soldier Field, Week 16, 20-17. And what'd you say? So, yeah, second-year kicker and Mason Crosby misses the field goal. And then you march down, and as we know, Robbie Gould was automatic for the Bears back in 2008. I'd have to look back. Like, hopefully Hester didn't go off for another touchdown like he did to open up his rookie campaign. I remember against us with that punt return in 2007. But, geez, I can almost see this thing shaking out now with Christian Watson out like that 2008 Week 16 game.
Yeah, I think Kyle Orton was starting.
You're making me kind of nervous about the game coming up on Sunday.
For what it's worth, I was at that game, so that's why I remember it so vividly. It was also, I believe, the coldest probably I think it's the coldest game in Bears history. It was by overtime. It was 0 degrees. Wind chill was negative.
And then the year before that, in 07, the Packers, before they headed into the playoffs, this is when Favre showed his age and how old and cold he was. There was like gusting winds of like 30 miles an hour, and you saw like extra points going up and then taking like a hard left or a hard right in that one. Talk about two back-to-back rough years for the Packers in Soldier Field.
Me and Jordan are pretty much roughly on the same page of the Packers are going to get off to a hot start record-wise, and then the schedule just gets tougher, and youth might show its, ugly colors and who knows what, but they'll taper off. Like, we're not these guys that are coming on saying, hey, we're going 14-3, like this is going to be a cakewalk and all this stuff. We're kind of in the boat where I'm sitting anywhere between probably 4 and 9 wins. I think that's like a realistic. I know it's kind of a huge shotgun spread there, but it's like if Jordan Love is average, they're going to be in the mix of 7 and 9 wins. And if Jordan Love is not the guy and you're like looking for another quarterback next year, you're looking at that 4-win window. But I don't see Love sucking that much. Kind of what are your overall expectations for the Bears, I guess?
Yeah, I'll touch just kind of overall for the division. I think everyone's in the same boat. 8 wins might win it. A lot of people are high on the Lions. I'm not so sure. I think they caught a little bit of a wind, and the Vikings are a mess. They could do the same thing and win every game by 1 point again, and who knows? And then the Bears and Packers are total quarterback questions. But if you put the division in any order, I think that's not unrealistic for pretty much all teams. And the hard thing with the Bears is, I believe this stat came around and people were like, I believe one time in the last 10 years, the Bears have outperformed expectations based on the season win-loss projection. And that was 2018 when Trubisky made the jump. So he made whatever jump he could make, I should say. And the defense actually became an awesome defense. So that's what it has to be for the Bears to overperform. I think they're total 7.5, 17 games, something like that, 7.5, around there. 8 wins would be fine. If we're under 7.5, that means Justin Fields is not who he needs to be, and they need to move on at quarterback.
Who's this? Ryan? Is it Ryan or Ryan?
Ryan. Don't say
Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say Rain, but okay.
He's more privileged.
Rain Wilson chiming into the chat here. He's a big fan of yours, it seems.
So you're saying anything under 7, they need to be looking at someone else?
Yeah, unless the defense is the worst defense in the history of football, and Fields goes for 4,030 touchdowns, runs for 1,000, and they somehow win 7 games, that's a pretty impossible scenario. But any scenario where they win 5-6 games, Fields wasn't good enough. Any realistic one, and they could win 10. The schedule's not great. The division's not great. Every game in the division is a coin flip in my mind. So that's where we're at. And I think the Packers are probably a little bit higher floor. Okay. But anything over 10, I think Jordan Love needs to be the Bears' worst nightmare. And they go with 3 back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
So I want to touch on one more thing before we get to this fan question. But
and I got to plug in my laptop. So bear with me.
Me and Jordan have been talking about this in terms of there's other factors between their win-loss record and Jordan Love being good or bad. Like, Jordan Love could be average to good, and the rest of the team could just be not experienced enough to carry him. And you're going to have external factors, much like the Rodgers 08 season. You go 6-10, we could have a 5-12, a 6-11 season, and Love can prove himself to be a starting caliber quarterback, and the rest of the team's just not ready for him.
Yeah, I think that's where the difference is, because we know the Bears defense at best case scenario, I think, is average.
Okay.
Which big jump up. The O-line best case scenario is slightly above average. The only unit that should be that has a chance to be top 10 in football is the receiver room. And where the Packers are already, some people said they were top 5 offensive line last year. At least I believe Pro Football Focus had them at 3rd. And the defense is solid. You have a Jair Alexander guy who's a Pro Bowler and a lockdown corner that sets your floor so high. So Jordan Love can be just average or even just slightly below average. You win 8 games, sneaking into the playoffs, and more development, and you're fine. I think the experience and number of games played is kind of the difference there, even though they're same kind of portion of their career. This is kind of your first look at Jordan Love, where we're year 3 on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Even though we don't want to count year 1 because of his old coach, but it counts, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the elephant in the room of Kenny Clark and the human wrecking ball, because me and Jordan witnessed him throw a grown-ass man 5 yards down the field in the preseason game and then walk out the field. Like, that's the only snap I need this preseason.
He shouldn't even been in there. He does not need those snaps.
What's your plan? And then there are a couple up-and-coming defensive linemen that the Packers have. I'm very high on Carl Brooks. Jordan's very high on Wooden. That there's some added depth to this line that the Packers haven't had in a long time. So if they're going to double team Kenny, or at times we witnessed them get triple teamed, there's some young cats here that are highly touted pass rushers in college.
Yeah, it's going to be the most difficult thing, and I think the answer, at least in the run game, it's going to have to be double teaming or running away, because we're probably not stout enough interiorly to get there. In the passing game, you're going to have to hope that the 2 tackles can handle the edge rushers and throw Lucas Patrick that way and throw Nate Davis and try and throw 2 at him. You make sure the running back, you're always chipping Kenny Clark to make sure we just don't get run over type of thing. That's a big worry with this game, is holding up against a dude like that who's just so explosive and huge and just a really, really good player. It's going to be very difficult because there's only so many things you can do without changing everything you do, and you become so one-dimensional and so simplistic on offense that you can't take advantage of the weapons that we've gotten this year.
I know coaches don't usually overlook players. Do you think a lot of fan bases overlook Kenny Clark? Because he has to be one of the underappreciated defensive linemen in the league. Because, I just see him I'm a homer and I'm so in tune to the Packers, but I just see the guy getting through ridiculous blocks and just his first step or his power. I don't know why the guy's so underappreciated. There's the Donald effect where he doesn't get the sacks and stuff like that, but the guy wrecks the line of scrimmage week in, week out.
Yeah, it's just the most underappreciated position in football is going to be the 3-4 defensive end. The nose tackles can be big because they're 2-gapping at half the time, and those are the 400-pound Sean Phillips types dudes, and they're almost comically big, right? You're not a 4-3 defensive end where you're actually getting a ton of sacks and you're flashy, or the 3-4 outside linebackers where you're getting the sacks, the stand-ups. That's what everyone loves right now. Similar to interior alignment, you're doing the dirty work, you're clogging the middle, and unless you're Aaron Donald backdooring everything and making TFLs out the ass, like, you're not going to get that much, especially as a younger guy on a team that, or at least a defense that he's not BJ Raji even level of notoriety right now. And he'll get there, I think. But that's just because there's just little factors with personality, probably, unless you're a big outspoken dude in the interior D-line, big funny dude, like those are who people like in there. You're just not going to get that because the production numbers aren't going to be there.
So that's a great point, because I would almost I think that Kenny is actually more explosive than Raji. I don't have his numbers, but I would say that Kenny's probably outperformed Raji.
He's definitely better.
Definitely.
But Raji is the folklore of Green Bay. I mean, he was on the Super Bowl. He's the freezer, not the fridge.
Yeah, there's some guy that also named the Fridge that comes from a team that's not too far away. And it's
Yeah.
like from a team that Bear fans just like can't seem to forget about either. And
Yeah.
each year
And
you tend to get reminded of.
he was an above
I'll,
average.
I'll stir the pot. I'll stir the pot just a touch.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm like, hey, I'm glad our defense is bad and the offense is supposed to be good because we don't have to compare the defense. And that's all people do. So we're tired of it too. But appreciate it all, love it all. So it's the only positive memory to look back on. But I'm right there with you.
All right, man. Real quick, we'll go around the horn, and then Blake will let you enjoy the rest of your Hamburg evening. But predictions, score, and who wins?
I'm gonna go. I want to take the Bears as the homer and the fan. I've seen too much. I've seen too much history. I'm going 2017 Packers.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. I'll go next. I did this on Tuesday. I'm gonna stick with it, even though Watson's gonna be out. But I was gonna say 24-13.
For who?
Packers. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Just had to make sure.
Did I go 24-13 or did I go 24? Yeah, I went 24-13. I'm going 24-13.
I'd have to look back through like the past 10, 15 years to see when it's been. I believe that too. Like every single game goes down to the wire. Like what were the 2 years that the Packers blew the doors off the Bears at Soldier Field? I mean, we all can think of that 2014 42-0 route at halftime the Packers had. I have to look back through it. Like I'm sort of that love the history side of it and reminiscing on the past. But my score predictions for Sunday, I don't want to flip-flop it because of Christian Watson, as much of a difference that he makes, but it really is. Like it makes me feel like they were really shorthanded at wide receiver, and that changes the sort of play calling of LaFleur, and we really, like baby the offense in a way. But I'll stay true to it. I was gonna say earlier this week, 28-21 Packers, and I'll be a Packers homer on this show and ride with it, even though now that I have found out that the 2008 at Soldier Field game was 20-17 with the Bears win. A big part of me wants to say that history repeats itself on Sunday, that, well, it's not week 16, it's week 1, and the Bears win in overtime thrilling fashion, 20-17 with a Robbie Gould. I'm kidding. Not a double boink. I don't even know who the Bears kicker is at this point.
Cairo Santos.
Oh,
yeah.
I could see him having a game-winning kick. But I'm going to stick with 28-21, Pat.
See, my caveat to this is I think it's very much like the Soldier Field game of last year, where it's very close and it's kind of going to be that end around to Watson that broke kind of the camel's back there, where it made the score inflate more than it is. I think it's going to be pretty close of like a 17-13 game, and then all of a sudden the Packers get like this fluke touchdown at the very end of the game that just puts the score at how it goes. But I see it being a one-score game till like the last probably 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, Bears were up 19-10, I think, in like the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah, they had a 2-score lead.
So, yeah. And then interception, fumble, whatever, and then it goes the other way. So, but
Blake,
we'll
I can't
see what happens.
Tell you how much we appreciate this. We hope to have you on for the Lambeau Field edition of Bears Packers. Man, you're a champ. Thanks for coming on this late at night. Thanks for your insight. Thanks for your knowledge in football as a whole. Thank you.
That's true midnight oil for you guys.
Hey, I'm staying up to watch Thursday Night Football. I wouldn't miss it for the world. So I appreciate you guys having me on. You can hit me up for a reaction if the Bears do pull this off. I'll make sure I send Dave something.
Perfect. We can do that. We can do an overreaction Monday on this. I'm down, but yeah, Blake, we moved the time schedule up a little bit so we could kind of sneak in that Thursday night game. I gotta go check on Bella. I think she's just watching herself at this point.
Classic.
But thanks, guys. Always a pleasure. Jordan, we're going to do this again sometime soon. Blake, thank you as always.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers all.
Roast.
Oh, yeah, brost.